welcome back to my channel and to another video. I hope you are all really well. In today's video I'm going to be sharing with you my top tips for working with vinyl and for making working with self-adhesive vinyl so much easier for you. So without any further ado, let's jump into the video. The first tip that I'm going to share with you then today for working with vinyl is to use weeding boxes. Weeding boxes just make it so much easier to peel your excess vinyl away from your design when you are ready to do it, and it just helps really to stop you from sort of getting all tangled up with your hands and getting your vinyl stuck to each other and really, to be honest, messing up your design. So as you can see, I've got a design on the screen, Happy 18th Birthday Stella, and I've got two boxes already on there. I'm going to make the third one now. So all I'm going to do is grab a shape, just the basic square is fine. Change the colour of that to white, and the first thing that you want to do is right click and send it to the back. So that is there now behind all of this wording. What I'm going to do next is just line it up over here as close to the edge of that first letter as I can. Come up to the padlock box here and just undo that, and then I'm going to stretch this box so that it's all the way around my text and it's covering the top of those letters and the bottom here of those ones too. Then what I'm going to do, actually what I'm going to do first is come over here to these, and I'm just going to unite this text because it looks as though it's going to cut with some gaps in the letters. So let's do that first. And then that was Stella, and I just need to do the birthday one, which I think is that one. Okay, right, so then what I want to do is select everything here and then again click on attach, so we now have one layer in the layers panel. If I go through to make, it should look exactly like it does on the screen, and this is how the text is going to be laid out for the balloon, so it makes it much easier. Let me show you exactly what I mean once I've cut it out. Here is the very successful cut then, and as you can see I have left it on its cutting mat. Now this isn't really a official tip for this video, but definitely leave your vinyl on your mat if you can when you're weeding, because it just gives you like an extra helping hand, because sometimes you take this off and it'll curl round and it makes it more difficult for you to weed. So leave it on here and it does help. So as you can see, the weeding boxes are all here. What I'm going to do first of all is start off on the bottom one, I think, here, and what I'm going to do is pop my weeding tool into the corner of that weeding box, and I'm just going to pull that back nice and slowly. Now this is actually working in my favour because you can see that it's being quite temperamental with how it's cut. Now the cut hasn't come out as well as I would have hoped it to have done, but imagine if I was peeling back this full piece of vinyl here and I've got that whole piece in my hand when I get to this point, and then I find out actually this bit hasn't cut very well around here, so I need to bring in a knife just to go over that last cut there, just to help that out with the weeding. I really wouldn't be able to do that if I'd got all this vinyl in my hand, so it works out really well. And what you'll want to do is just keep your hand quite flat on the left hand, or if you're using your right hand for pulling it back, the other hand, and then you just pull back nice and slowly. Now as you can see, that is a perfect weed. It looks fantastic and it was much easier than pulling this whole piece off here. The next method to help to make weeding easier is to use an offset, and this is to surround your text with an easy peelable layer to remove first. You just need to be careful that you don't peel off the wrong bits. So I'd recommend making sure that you refer to your design when you peel it off, but I'll show you exactly what I mean. This tip is particularly useful for cursive text like the one I've got on the screen right now. So this is going to be a decal for a balloon. Arthur is wonderful. I think that is going to be roughly the size I'm going to do. So what I want to do to make this a little bit easier to weed, as I said, is add an offset. So I've got all this united already, so it's ready to go. All I'm going to do is come up here to offset, I'm going to use this sliding bar here just to make it quite thin. Don't want it to be massive, it doesn't need to be massive. And then I'm going to apply that. So that is my offset added onto there. Now what I'm going to do next to make it a little bit easier when I come to weed is I am going to get rid of all of those pieces of contour that I don't want, because that will save me having to go in with my weeding tool and take out all of those centre pieces. So that is done. What I'm going to do next is grab myself another shape, and I'm going to go for the regular square again because I'm going to put a weeding box behind all of this. I'm going to turn it white again. I'm going to right click and send it to the back so it's behind there. Come up to the padlock. I'm going to stretch it out that way, it's probably going to be about right, and then come down here again. Again, I want it to be quite close to where I am. I don't need for it to be miles out. Then I'm going to select everything and I am going to attach. And it's going to switch to being white. The reason that it turns white is because that is the last colour that I changed to on the mat. I'm happy with that now, so let's go through to make, and I'll show you how to weed this to make it easier. Alright then, here is the cut. So you can see we've got our offset around the outside there of the design, and then we've also got our weeding box as well. So I'm going to start off by taking away the excess from around the weeding box. So let's just peel all of that back. Look how easily that comes off. It just makes it so much easier. Now when we are taking off this big excess piece, it's going to be much easier to do because we're not going to be directly touching our design, and I'm going to show you that now. So we're going to peel this back, we're going to go from the right across to the left, and as you can see now, that's just come off so easily, and there is that piece of vinyl all in one piece. Then we have got, then we've got our design left on here. Now I'm just going to tell you something now. I have literally just switched over my blade because my blade was dragging a little bit on the first design, and I've just switched over to a premium fine point replacement blade. And as you can see, it's cut so well, but it has cut a little bit into this backing paper, so it's going to be really interesting trying to get this design off of the paper, I think. So let's take away some of this offset now then. So I'm just putting that into there and taking that piece off. It's just so much easier, and I can see my design, it's cut perfectly, and it's going to be just amazing to weed. It's so much easier. It's so satisfying to peel those pieces off, and to be honest, it's not using any more vinyl because all of what you would have had around there you'd have thrown away as negative vinyl anyway, so you don't even need to worry about that. And also the reason why I get that weeding box in as small as I can, because realistically you're not going to cut around this design to save those bits of vinyl, so the weeding boxes don't really use any extra vinyl either, which is great. As I said before, it's a good idea to refer to your design on the screen. If it's a little bit more complicated than what mine is, you might find that you've got to double check which pieces you need to remove. But that's it. Look how easy that was to do with that offset around it. Absolutely fantastic. So the next tip follows on quite well from that last one, because as you can see here, the change in the blade has really resulted in quite a big indentation in this backing paper, and it has actually gone through it completely at the bottom there. So I'm going to cut that off. And when I say that this next tip follows along well from this, it's because this just highlights the importance of test cuts. So test cuts are so easy to do, and all I normally do is I will just grab myself a small shape. So I'll literally grab a star, maybe a heart, and maybe even a little bit of text, just to make it a little bit easier to see whether the material that I'm cutting can use the same settings that I'm used to, because I've changed my blade, or I've changed my material, or I'm using a different machine. all those variables can make a difference to whether your cut works out or not. So it's really important that you do test cuts. So especially with HTV, I find it's a good idea to do a test cut. Literally all I'll do is cut these out, just double check my settings work, make sure that I'm happy with the way the cut looks, that it's easy to weed, there's no dragging, and then once I'm happy with it, I can cut my bigger design. Now if I'm using a massive design and I cut it out and then I find out my settings were wrong, or I find out that I've got a bit that hasn't cut in the middle or something similar, I'm going to be really frustrated with it and I'm going to waste a lot of my expensive materials. So it's a good idea to make sure that you complete a test cut for any changes on your machine. Following on from doing a test cut, it is really important as well to make time to get to know your materials, get to know your settings and get to know your machine. I've got two machines, they're both Cricut makers, but they both perform totally differently. They both use different settings for the same materials, and it can be difficult to work out which one is better to use for different things when I'm making stuff. So it's really important that you spend time sitting down, working with your machine and just trying to figure out what works best for you. I would always say to people, and I see a lot of people online who are like, I've got a Cricut, I'm going to make stuff and I'm going to sell it. You're not going to be able to do that straight away. You really need to get to know what you're doing. You need to know what's going to go wrong with your cuts, because a lot of things do go wrong. It's inevitable. And I think that a lot of people try to run before they can walk with the Cricut. I think a lot of people think it's really easy and that they're going to be able to do something and make a really good quality item without any sort of effort, but that's certainly, in my own experience, not the way that it works. You really need to get to know your machine, you need to get to know your materials, and you need to get to know the products as well that you're making. If you do intend on selling them, make sure that you know exactly what you're doing, because the last thing you want to do is disappoint your customers, and then before you've even started, you have already tripped at the first hurdle. I'm going to try to apply this vinyl to my transfer paper whilst I talk to you about this next tip. So when you are putting your vinyl onto your balloon or onto whatever it is you're putting it onto, I would always recommend that you try not to stretch it. It sounds like the most obvious thing, but it's so easy to stretch your vinyl, and then you'll find that you will end up with a piece that doesn't quite work and you'll need to snip it. So if you do need to snip your vinyl, I use these little tiny jewellery snips, and all I do is lift up the vinyl with my finger and then I literally snip it, and then I place it back down and just rub it down as best I can, nice and smooth, and then that will just help to hide where that little join is. Now I'm going to try and get this off here whilst I'm chatting to you, but I think it's going to be quite difficult to remove. So this is why we don't want that vinyl to be cut as deeply as it has cut, because as you can see now I've got to go through and peel back all of this paper off there. But it's a little bit of an annoyance, but that again just reiterates why it's so important to do a test cut. And I should have listened to my own advice on this occasion, but it'll come up eventually, but it's just going to be a little bit more hard work. My next tip then is with regards to the materials that you choose. So one surefire way to make working with vinyl difficult is to use poor quality materials, and I'm guilty of this too as much as the next person. It's really tempting to see vinyl in places like Poundland, Works, or even self-adhesive book coverings in places like B&M. However, in my own personal experience, these don't tend to cut well on the machine. They are cheap, but the time spent attempting to cut them, weed them and apply them is worth much more. There's nothing more frustrating than cutting something to find it hasn't worked. When I first got my Cricut, it was 2019, and I used all sorts of vinyl. I bought stuff from Poundland, I bought book coverings, I bought all sorts of cheap materials because they were cheap and I didn't really want to spend a lot of money. But I quickly learned that the best vinyls to use, unfortunately, as with most things, are the more expensive ones. I started off using the tape and Rich Rama vinyls, and I got both of those from MDP Supplies, and whilst they are really good vinyl, they're not really good for what I want to do. So when I'm making balloon decals, I need something that's going to cut thin, that's not going to tear, that's not going to lift up off the mat when the blade is cutting it. And I also, when I'm weeding it, I don't want the back of my vinyl to be too gummy, so then it makes the vinyl stick to the next piece that I'm trying to weed away. So I've got quite a lot of those vinyls still in stock, and I am working my way through them, but I am really trying not to order any more of those. I am, as I go along, replacing all of my tape and all of my Rich Rama vinyls with Oracle 651. This is of course my own opinion, and loads of other vinyls are available, but I find Oracle 651 to be so reliable. It cuts so well. It's always a smooth, buttery cut. The weeding is so easy to do. Everything just comes out perfect. And another thing that I found with those other vinyls, when I'm using them on balloons, sometimes they would bubble underneath when there was heat applied to them. So I'm not talking about like putting a hairdryer or a heat gun or anything like that on them. Like literally once they were done and they went into the shop, if it was warm in there, the vinyl and the adhesive underneath would bubble. Now I don't ever get that with the Oracle 651. It is a little bit more expensive, but it's 100% worth the change, and paying that little bit extra is so worth it. So I would always say to you, try what you can, but try Oracle 651 and you will see the difference between the cheap vinyl and the really good quality stuff.